It is Saturday morning, 2nd of July 2022. Today's Skidmark is about this hammering on policy that we hear from the collective West. And this morning I saw this tweet on my timeline on Twitter. In other words, the Russians are getting richer than ever on their oil and gas exports. How exactly is our oil ban hurting them? It is not, but it's hurting consumers in the US and Europe and will do so indefinitely. We are plunging into recession. Now there's a lot of truth in that. And this is something that I cannot understand of the citizens of the EU and the citizens of the US. How can they blindly follow their leaders? From the first day when the sanction war against Russia was started, I knew that this thing was going to backfire. And for two simple reasons. First of all, Europe is totally dependent on Russia for their energy. Yeah, there are a few extras they're getting from somewhere else, but the backbone of the European energy system is from Russia. The second point is Russia is a major exporter of food and fertilizer. Now, without fertilizer, the farmers cannot grow their own food in the EU. What I cannot understand is that nobody is actually calling these leaders out, because it only takes a man with reasonable intelligence to understand that if you cut the power to his plant is gone. And this is what the European Commission has done. They cut the power to the EU and they expect the EU to survive. It is irrational and illogical. But we have to keep in mind, all of this is driven by the liberals and the newcons. Politicians that don't care about the people, they care about their mission and policy. And that is it. And if the world does not wake up to it, and by world I mean the Western world, does not wake up and take action against these leaders, the Western world is going to collapse. And we can see the lines clearly already. And this morning, after I saw this tweet, I went and I did some research and I stumbled onto this article. I will put a link to the article in this description of this video on YouTube. At the NATO summit, President Biden said that gas prices are so high because Putin invaded Ukraine. Actually, it is because of the way Western leaders, including Joe Biden, chose to respond to Putin's invasion by cutting off Russian oil. In theory, it is fine to boycott the oil of a nation to punish it for launching a war, but this doesn't seem to be hurting Russia at all. And now I'm going to read a fairly lengthy piece snippet out of that article. Russia's invasion of Ukraine triggered global condemnation of tough sanctions aimed at denting Moscow's war chest. Yet Russia's revenues from fossil fuels, by far its biggest export, soared to records in the first 100 days of its war on Ukraine, driven by a windfall from oil sales amid surging prices, a new analysis shows. Russia earned what is very likely a record 93 billion euros in revenue from export of oil, gas and coal in the first 100 days of the country's invasion of Ukraine, according to data analyzed by the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, a research organization based in Helsinki, Finland. About two-thirds of those earnings, the equivalent of about $97 billion, came from oil and most of the remainder from natural gas. The current rate of revenue is unprecedented because prices are unprecedented and export volumes are close to their highest levels on record. Now, that is sobering information, but unfortunately, the leaders in Brussels and in Washington does not pay attention to facts like this. And I'm just going to read this piece out of that article. The link will be in the description so you can read the whole article. Yeah, why don't you ask the working people struggling to fill up their cars how much they care about the future of the liberal world order? The unhappy fact is that Russia is going to win this war, and our oil and gas boycotts are not only not hurting Russia, but helping it get richer while impoverishing our own peoples. What sense does that make? In May, the governor of the Bank of England, the equivalent in the US to the head of the Federal Reserve, warned of apocalyptic food shortages coming later this year, as Ukraine produces 27% of the world's wheat, but can't export it because of the war. Like most people, I hate Russia's war on Ukraine, but again, is it worth our own people going hungry to prevent Russia from prevailing in a war it will inevitably win anyway? Now, in this piece, I agree with what the guy says. I only disagree on that percentage of the wheat that Ukraine produces. It's not that high. Russia produces far more than that, and the Ukraine export can easily be matched by Russia and wiped out by Russia. This 27% figure is not correct. And then the last piece that I want to read from that article. In other words, the Russians are getting richer than ever on their oil and gas exports. And how exactly is our oil ban hurting them? It is not, but it is hurting consumers in the US and Europe and will do so indefinitely. We are plunging into recession because of all of this. Do you think that the Biden administration cares? I can say a lot more about this, but the fact is, if the citizens of the collective West do not wake up quickly and take action against these leaders, the Western consumers is heading for a very rough time. A rough time that these liberal leaders is not going to suffer from, because they are insulated, and as we just saw the past week, whenever things go tough for them, they just vote and up their salaries, and that's it. And the taxpayers pay for that, and the taxpayers suffer. So my message on this Saturday morning to the citizens of the collective West: wake up! These leaders are taking you to hell.